Hello, everybody. Welcome to Progressive HR Live. I am here with Sudha Dwivedi and the CHRO with Teranet, and we're discussing the role of today's global CHRO. How are you today, Sudha?
I'm great. Thank you. It's a beautiful day in Toronto. I hope it's sunny wherever everyone is today.
And that's the point. If you are a common guest of Progressive HR Live, now this is the time to go ahead and introduce yourself in the comments and let us know where you're streaming from. So I'm going to go ahead and go to our first question. Sudha, tell me a little bit more about your role.
Yeah, so I have the privilege and honor of being the head of HR for Teranet. So for those of you that don't know my organization, Teranet, we provide technology and software solutions for the end-to-end real estate ecosystem, including lawyers as well as land registry. We've been in business for, gosh, well over 35 years. I've been at Teranet for 3 years now. I joined just at the beginning of the pandemic. So picture this, I joined the organization. A week later, we get into lockdown. So I essentially developed my relationships with everybody in the organization over Zoom and Teams. So I lead the HR function, and we've got offices in Ontario as well as Manitoba, India, New Zealand, and I have the privilege of leading the entire team that serves this great organization.
Thanks so much, Sudha. And oh my God, I'm so sorry that I had my phone on. That's one of the things I usually have in my checklist, like making sure that I tick check, turn off my phone. But you heard the beeps, and so the phone
Don't
was
worry. And it's interesting. What is really great about this organization, just not myself as the head of HR, but for all of the leaders here at Teranet, we bring to the table the leadership of our own function, whatever our specialty is, as well as the broader organizational leadership role. So while my main job is to lead the HR function, I do sit on an executive team that helps run the business on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and that's part of our discussion is that it's the role of the global CHRO. And how it's the role of the CHRO. I mean, I've always felt that CHRO was a very important part of any organization, but a lot of people feel that there's been this huge shift since the pandemic, and that their CHRO now provides more value add. But I always thought it was there. What do you think about that?
So it's interesting. It's a great question, Corinne, because often people talk about soft skills being soft, but I think what we know now, well, HR people always knew this. Let's be clear. Okay, we always knew this, that soft skills are really hard skills. So EQ, empathy, the ability to multitask, influence, inspire. These are all really important skills for any leader of an organization. And in HR, we're kind of bred that way, but it's for some people it's innate, but it's actually a skill that you build and you learn. I mean, there are some example of natural born leaders, if you know what I mean, but I think that to lead any organization, it's a skill that you build and you work on. I certainly do. I read a lot, I watch a lot, podcasts. I learn from other great leaders to ensure that I'm building that skill every day so I can lead the HR function well and the entire organization.
And going on to skills, I mean, we're going to have some questions for you later on in our program today about the skills, the future skills, and the today's skills of the CHRO. But one of the things I wanted to ask you before we kind of move on to more audience introductions is, what are the complexities of the global CHRO role?
So HR is never an easy job. I started as an HR coordinator, 35 years ago, and then built my career into the position I am today. So it's never been simple. HR, we deal with people become emotions, and we help support their not only professional career, but I want to say also their personal lives, because we know now through the pandemic that work-life integration is prominent, and it brought it to the forefront. And I think that's really critical for people to understand that while it's always been complex, the last several years it's become even more complex with supporting the organization through the pandemic, with the onset of AI, with the socio-political economic conditions that are now upon us, with ESG now upon us as well. And that role really, or those strategies really fall within the HR function and the leader to help navigate the organization through. It's been a a difficult couple of years with the pandemic for our entire world. And I would say for the HR teams, it's been, I want to say even compounded difficult within their own jobs, because as HR professionals, we are professionals at work supporting the organization through the change, but we're also humans. So we're at home, we're wives, we're daughters, we're sons, we're fathers. And when you're an HR person, you have a natural tendency to lean towards service. So you're supporting your family and your community as well as your organization through all of these changes that are now upon us. So it's become more and more complex. The different needs of the different profiles of people within our organization, Gen X's, Boomers, Gen Zs, and there's always this focus on what does the Gen Z want, what does the Gen Xer want, what does the Boomer want. I really do believe that everybody fundamentally wants the same thing, work-life balance, integration, be able to do great work at work, come in and show up and be your true self every day, and be able to spend time with your family and friends, and also focus on your own needs. I don't think that's different for any generation. But it's become more and more of a focus, and more and more of a focus for the HR leader to ensure that those strategies are being fulfilled in the organization. When I say that it's been difficult for HR people in the last couple of years, I take very seriously the care and support that my HR function needs, because as I said, they're supporting the organization through these difficult challenges, and being that support person at home, because it's our natural DNA. So I want to make sure that they're getting their best support from me, so I can enable them to be their best selves at work, live their true lives at work, make sure they're getting the support they need so they can give their best. What we often forget to do as professionals, not just in HR, I want to say this applies to everybody, is putting on that oxygen mask, making sure that you're taking those breaths first, right? We see those examples on airplanes all the time, like, you breathe first before you pass the mask on to your neighbor. There's a reason for that. You can't give what you don't get. So I try to make sure that my team gets what they need.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I believe exactly like what you were saying is like, there's a lot of media out there trying to pick apart like what's the difference between boomers
Yeah.
and Gen Xers and millennials and Gen Zs, and then they're trying to make millennials and Gen X kind of like, what is it, like elder millennials or Gen X millennials, like put us together. And then it, to your point, everybody more or less wants the same thing.
Yeah, I can't imagine asking somebody who's a boomer or a Gen Xer like myself saying, are you not interested in work-life balance? This is not new. It might be the focus now. We get a lot of those insinuations and questions that this is what the Gen Zs or Gen Zs are focused on. I think that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants an ability to be their best selves wherever they are. And they want to focus on what's important to them. They want to show up every day, be appreciated for what they do, be recognized for what they do, ensure they have great benefit programs so they can take care of themselves or their families should someone fall ill. This is stuff that is important to everyone. People want to feel like they belong.
Absolutely.
And that they're recognized, right? So
yeah, it's cool.
I don't think that's new for anyone. I think it's just a focus now. The other challenge coming our way, of course, is the future of work, the new way of working, whether that's hybrid or fully remote or AI that's disrupting our whole, any industry you're in, regardless of what industry you're in. This is the new way of work is, I believe is what the internet was, years and years ago, just disrupting the way we work. But in a good way. It's scary, right? So we got to know how to manage it and navigate it. But I think change is always going to be inevitable. So, the complexity, as you asked the question, what's complex for HR? Well, all of this falls on our shoulders to help navigate the organization. The other part of it is when you work globally or you have global teams, or even if it's national teams, it's not global, but it's in different provinces or states. It's really important to ensure that everybody is wearing that one company jersey, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody here wears a Teranet jersey. We're on the same team, but that's not to mean that you shouldn't recognize what local or regional things mean to people, right? So even within our own country in Canada, we'll have different cultures throughout different provinces. We certainly have them globally. And so we need to recognize that it's one company jersey, but local for local where it makes sense, and region for region where it makes sense. Some of the stuff we've done here at Teranet is that in our Indian office in Trivandrum, that's in the state of Kerala, in India, it is very common to have multi-generational homes. So children live with their parents, and you don't move out. When you get married, your family moves in, and you live with your parents and take care of your elderly. So we've introduced benefit programs in our Indian office that it's not just for you and your spouse and your children, but if you are in a multi-generation home, your parents have access to those benefits as well because you're living in one home. So so it's one Teranet jersey, but do what makes sense for the region.
Exactly. Fantastic. So we're going to go to our audience and see who's joining us today. Audience, if you just joined us, please go ahead and add who you are and where you're streaming from. And if you have any questions for Sudha, we're very happy to answer those questions. So we're going to go to our audience, and we have Rohit. Excited for the conversation here. Thank you for joining us. And then we, of course, have Marnie Robbins. Marnie Robbins is a Progressive HR alum. We had her talking with us last season, and she's coming to you from Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. Excited for this event. Thank you, Marnie. And then we have, I'm so sorry for maybe butchering this name, Pranjal. Maybe I got it correct.
I can say it. I can say Pranjalavasti. I can say it.
Very good, very good. And he says, HR student and data analyst, excited to be here. I've joined from India.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And this one says, LinkedIn user, but I'm going to quick go up to my panel here, and it says, oh gosh.
Manoj.
Yep, Manoj. And then he from the UK, so very international group. And you want to do this one for me too, Sue?
That's Manasa. Hi, Manasa. Manasa works with us here at Teranet.
Thanks
Very
for
proud
joining
to have her. This is a big up-and-comer, this young lady right here.
Fantastic. Love giving props to other people. I love that. And then a very good friend, very good LinkedIn friend, Charles Mangino from New York City. My gosh, everybody's just kind of jumping in right now. So, and we've got Daniel Bolus from Seattle. And then we have Manasa again. I'm always excited to listen to Sudha share her experience. Fantastic. So we got a great group on with us today. Yeah. So we're going to go into our next question. And I think this is probably maybe one of my favorite questions of all the questions we kind of laid out together is what strategies are you driving in your role that is fundamental to Teranet's performance and success?
It's a great question, Corinne. So look, as HR professionals, our job is to help drive business results through great talent management programs and through people. Okay, so that's what the HR strategy is. We're in business because we have to help the organization achieve the strategy that they want to. But we can't do that without a great team. So the first thing you need to do as a HR leader is build a strong team. And I'm really privileged and honored to have an amazing team. I have a hashtag. I call them the hashtag dream team because they really, really are. Manasa's on the line today. She's one of those people. So definitely build a great team because we know as leaders, we can only deliver through our team. My team has heard me say this many times. I believe that I'm just a conductor of a symphony. I actually don't play an instrument. The team plays the instrument, and they're delivering the great music every single day here at Teranet. So with your great team, you're going to deliver on the strategy, and you're going to do that through, first of all, building, in my opinion, a strategy is an incredible employee value proposition. That's what it means to be part of the organization you're in. It's what matters to people the most. So what do the rewards look like? What does the recognition programs look like? How are you enabling career growth and the learning and development programs? We know that we can only advance a strategy through great people and talent and through those programs. And the focus of DE&I, that has to be embedded into all of your talent programs as well. So again, delivering an incredible employee value proposition so people feel very proud of working for your organization and they want to work for your organization. The second, I think, is org design and change management. That includes workforce planning, which is not easy. We know that there's a huge retirement influx coming throughout North America. I can only speak to those stats for now, but we know that that is coming our way. So how are we preparing for that from a attraction perspective, from a retention perspective, from ensuring that we have the right succession programs in place? So whoever has that tribal knowledge is being passed on, whether that's through an apprenticeship or a learning program. So really to have a good org design and change management practice to enable those. And then I think this next one for me is one of the most critical ones as well. They're all critical, but this one really resonates with me, and I hope it does with our audience as well, is really focusing on leadership capability and accountability. Everything an organization has to accomplish, they're going to accomplish through great leadership programs and having capable leaders in place that are able to influence, inspire, and drive those programs and help people achieve what they need to achieve every single day. The focus on the leader is so critical to your HR strategy and how you're enabling them to achieve the organizational strategy. So I think that's really critical for us. And of course, employee engagement. We know that people's engagement is directly tied to their leader. And so what do those practices look like? And it's not easy, right? We know with all this change going on, the future of work, people worked in office before, now they're hybrid, now they're remote. So it's helping your leader manage and navigate through that as well. These are new skills that they have to learn, and it's our role in the organization in HR to help them through that. And then, of course, for me, the future of work, I've mentioned it before. What does that look like? Hybrid, remote, AI. What is ChatGPT going to do for our organization, and how do we navigate the organization? So I think these strategies are really critical today and in the coming years. Like when we talk about the future of work, the future is now, Corinne. It's now. Mm-hmm. So these are things that we have to focus on right now.
And so 2 points I wanted to make with the conversation there is like going back to what you said at the beginning is that, the soft skills that leadership and HR is known, or HR leadership is known for, are hard skills now. Yeah. Very, very important, like emotional intelligence. And then also talking about ChatGPT, we already see the changes happening. Like I was talking to a reporter the other day and they were asking me about the disruption from ChatGPT and what's happening. I said, one of the things that's happening like over just the course of like the last 2 weeks is that, because so many people are using ChatGPT for their resumes now, recruiters and talent acquisitions are flocking to LinkedIn to see what is the actual reality. With candidates' experience. Well, here's one of the issues is there's a lot of people that don't have full LinkedIn profiles right now. And so we're kind of like, we have this huge gap between what is going to be in your LinkedIn profile and what isn't going to be in your LinkedIn profile, and can talent acquisition and recruiters really still kind of position and make sure that you are the best candidate to come in. If you don't have your LinkedIn profiles filled out, because resumes are kind of going to the back burner and saying that's old school now because ChatGPT is doing all the resumes.
It's interesting because there's no point in backing away from it, right? We got to lean in to all of this change and see how we navigate it and how we build the organizational strength around it as well. And to your point, like what's real and what's not. Some of that I think will play itself out. If you have a ChatGPT resume and you're too lazy to do your LinkedIn profile, right there as a recruiter, you go, okay, I'll move on, right? So I mean, I think those people, they flush out regardless. I'm going to date myself now, but when I was in university, you had to go to the library and sign out a periodical for your research. And by the time my kids were in high school and university, everything was through the internet and they Googled all their research. And I thought, oh, wow, like that's how they do it now. Like, and at the back of my mind, I thought, wow, is that lazy? Like to use a term, but it's not, it's their reality because all that information is available online now. So with ChatGPT and other AI programs, I think, resisting it, resistance is futile. That's me being a Star Trek fan. It's just not going to work for us. We just have to learn how to navigate it and work with it.
So quick bounce to the audience now. We've had a few more people join us. Actually, one more person join us. LinkedIn friend Gita from Houston. Thanks,
Hi.
thanks, thanks. She says, great sesh, Kareen. Appreciate that. And then Daniel said he really loved your analogy about the conductor and the symphony.
Mm, mm. Thank you.
So going back to what we were talking about is what's real, what's reality
Yeah.
versus what's not real. I'm going to get into kind of a topic here, and I want to talk about HR trends versus reality.
Hmm.
And everyone, while Sudha and I are talking about this, I want you to go ahead and have some little audience participation here. And please let me know, what's your favorite HR trend that's going on right now? Let me know in the comments. Go ahead and add there. And then also I wanted to mention that Sarah Murray, who is the Progressive HR Executive Assistant, she is in the comments right now, commenting live. So if you have any questions about Progressive HR or about Teranet or anything that we can help you with, please go ahead and you can direct those towards Sarah Murray. So going back to our poll, what's your favorite HR trend that's going on right now? And Sudha and I are going to talk about HR trends versus reality. So what are your thoughts? HR trends versus reality?
It's interesting. Okay. It's a great question. I love this question because I think that the trend, and I'm going to call it a trend, about DE&I, retention, engagement, these are great trends. These are trends that we needed to have ages ago. So while we hear a lot about DE&I and diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, I'm glad this is a trend. I will say, as a female brown leader, I wish I had this trend when I was in my 20s coming up in corporate Canada. So this is a trend that's happening right now, but I think it's only helping organizations. I think it's helping us advance marginalized people in our society and helping to advance marginalized people in the workplace. The focus on retention, because we've had the great resignation happen, this is an important trend because it now puts the focus on what really matters to employees, right? Of course, great compensation, but of course, benefits. I call this like Maslow's basic needs, right? If you remember that triangle, so safety and security, that's what matters to people. It doesn't matter what we put on top of that. If we can't get people to be paid equitably, and they know that they can take care of their family and themselves if they get ill. So while this is a trend, focus on retention, I think it's so important. And this is the reality we're sitting in today. People know, when you know better, you do better, and you want better, they want more. And I don't think that's a bad thing, Corinne. I think that's a good thing. There's no point in an organization focusing on something that they believe is the right program if it doesn't matter to their employee base. So focus on retention, focus on turnover, employee engagement. And we've heard about employee engagement for at least 25 years, right? It used to be called something else before then, employee satisfaction, and then now it became engagement, right? But the role of what your leader and manager plays in that is also a focus. But these are good trends, and that's the reality. As I said, we've got to focus on the role of the manager. So and that's strategy. So we can tend to the reality that that's hitting our organizations today.
So I think it went from because I came up through in HR through the early 2000s when all the great performance management and 360 feedback and the whole new recruiting process we were supposed to do. So I think it went from employer relations, so it went from personnel to employer relations to employee satisfaction to employee engagement. And I know now we're teetering kind of on an employee engagement, employee experience, kind of going back and forth from it. But to your point, like, why do we call these trends? Because again, they're core. They're core things that should be in every work environment, in every relationship, employee organizational relationship.
There was a time, Corinne, where you didn't talk about politics at work, right? But we know when George Floyd was murdered, it sparked the socio, revolution. That's what I call it. I'm bringing that to the forefront. That matters to people. People want to talk about that at work. That affected people to their core. in different ways. You know, if you were someone who was Black, it affected you differently. If you were Caucasian, but it did affect people. So, you know, we talked about it at work. We had circle focus groups about that and what that meant to people. That's a new trend. In those days, you know, back in the days, you didn't talk about that stuff. You came to work, you put your head down, did your job, you went home. But we know people bring their whole selves to work. And what does that look like? So that trend has now become a reality. So does that create more complexity in our day to day? For sure. But is it important that we address it? Yes. Because that is just the reality that we're going to be in now. And I think I wish we had it sooner than we have it now, but I'm glad we have it now at the forefront.
Yeah. So, you know, let's go back to making work more human, because
Yeah.
humans are complex. Why did we ever try to make work like static?
Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
we're working with humans. Why did we ever try to put it in a box?
Yeah.
Is my question.
Yeah. And we know that retention builds retention, right? So if we focus on inclusion and engagement, and you keep the great employees that you have to, you know, enhance the culture that you're working in, I think it's just so critical to any organization. So you have to focus on these trends, because then you're just ignoring it. You'll be out of touch. If this is the trend that's going on around you and your organization is not paying attention to that, you're going to lose out, because, you know, people focus on what's important to them. And it's not just about what they do for you every single day. Employees need to know that they matter to you more than what they just do every single day.
Oh gosh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1,000%, a
Yeah.
1,000%. So quick jump to the audience to answer the poll. Daniel said adoption of new technology, consumer-focused tools. Surprised Daniel didn't say employee wellness and lifestyle spending accounts. So Daniel's the CEO of Club Health. So he's
Okay.
very in
So,
tune with everything we're talking about right now.
well, and that's a great point that you said. And Daniel, you know, forgive me, I didn't even mention mental health, and I should have, because, you know, people call that a trend. That's not a trend. That is a focus that we should be having. And, you know, when you talked earlier, Karine, about working in a box, you know, we didn't talk about socio-political things. Imagine talking about mental health in the workplace 10 years ago, 5 years ago. It just wasn't talked about as much. And now the focus on that and your well-being is so critical. And that is a reality. And I'm so glad that it is. So we're taking the stigma away from mental health, and we're putting a lot more focus on well-being. And I think that's just so important that we continue that.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, you and I, we grew up in a different era. That's what's happening right now. And I'm still having a difficult time with talking about mental health and making it like okay, because I still feel this kind of, even though I know it's okay, it's still like that pressing ingrained stigma that we have. And I think that sometimes I think it does affect us.
Yeah, yeah. I think the more we talk about it and walk the talk, if you know what I mean, like your words have to have action, otherwise it's just words that they don't have any action following by it. So, you know, I have shared openly in my company town halls here with the entire workforce group that I used our EAP program during the pandemic, because I was struggling with the lockdown and how that was affecting me emotionally and physically, right? Because it's all tied together. And, you know, I had a bunch of people reach out to me saying, thanks for sharing that. It takes the stigma away. You know, when people share about it openly and say, yeah, I needed a therapist to help me through something. Why not? You know, if we said, you know, we had a headache, went to a doctor and gave me, you know, we had physical something that wasn't making us feel okay. People talk about that openly. Your mental well-being is just as critical. And I think it's important that we talk about and share that.
I really like that. I like that. That's you've been really dropping some great mic bomb analogies throughout this whole conversation. So I appreciate that. We got some comments here. I wanted to, Daniel said, to what you just said, love it. We should never be ashamed of using using these resources.
100%, Daniel. They're there. We provide them for our employees for their well-being, and they should be used. That's what they're there for.
So we're going to go on to another topic now. I said that the whole idea about the fundamental, the process and the fundamental things that you do to make sure that you're successful is one of my favorite questions. But this is actually, I think, my favorite question. So what are the 5 most important today/future CHR skills? And audience, I wanted to preface this because I sent these questions to Sudha ahead of time, and that's what I do for the guests on Progressive HR Live. And I had 2 questions, and I said, what are the 5 most important skills for CHROs today? And what are the 5 most important skills for the future for CHROs? And Sudha came back with, we need to combine this question because today is the future. And I said, absolutely, Sudha, absolutely. So that's why we have that question the way it is. So I'll leave the floor to Sudha.
Thanks, Corinne. And I'd love to hear from the audience as well and what they believe these are as well. I know we've got some HR folks dialed in today. So certainly, as I talked about the role of the leader and how critical that is to an organizational success, a really critical skill for an HR leader to have is the ability to coach and influence. So if you can influence your leaders, coach them so they can be better leaders, I think that really helps the organization succeed more because their influence is so large in the organization. So that is the ability to coach at every level, not just for the executive team, but for a new supervisor, a manager, a director, whatever the title is. But if you're a people leader, the ability to coach and influence, I think, is critical. I can't stress this next one enough: business acumen. When I was an HR coordinator and then became a generalist, was my next step. My HR manager at the time said to me this advice, and I've used it ever since, and I share this with all of my team, is know your business. Mm-hmm. Right? So you have to have business acumen. You have to understand that your industry, what vertical markets you play in, what products you have that make money, what products you have that lose money, what is the financial outlook of your organization. You can't really advise your organization or have that credibility as an HR leader if you don't understand your business. So your business acumen and knowing all of that, who your competition is, what are they putting out there versus what you're putting out there, and how you're trending in the industry, I think is so critical. So business acumen. And what I've done throughout my career as I came up through the ranks is that I've always presented myself, Corinne, as a general manager at the table. So I get the business, but what I bring to the table is my HR expertise, right? So really understanding the business, I think, is really, really important. And then because the only constant thing in life is change, is being that leader of organizational and enterprise change, I think, is so critical. We know, and we've just talked about things that are disrupting, organizations today. So how do you navigate or help the organization navigate through that and building that change resilience, building that change skill for an organization? We are going to go through so many right now, economic uncertainty, right? We know we're going through that now. Digitization is hitting upon us, really, really quick. And all of that disrupts, and we have to transform the organization, as I said earlier, to lean into it. So being that leader of organizational change and navigating the organization through that, I think, is a very critical skill to have. I said this earlier, but I'm going to say it again because it's so important. You can only do this if you have an incredible team as an HR leader. So you've got to build and create a future-focused HR team. They're operationally capable. They can support their internal client groups. They're financially disciplined. So they also understand that we've got to bring great HR programs to an organization in the lowest cost possible way. We're reminded too much every single day that HR is an expense function, right? So exactly. We've got to bring those programs in the lowest possible way, a cost possible way. But building that team is so critical. We coach and mentor and drive performance management programs through the organization. So we can't hold on to lower performers. We've got to build a strong brand, so we have that credibility in the organization. The ability to create relationships. You can't influence and coach and be a leader of change if you don't have strong relationships, because you will not be considered a trusted advisor, right? You hold that relationship so sacred. That's the word I was looking for. So sacred of the trusted advisor. I think it's just so critical to be able to have those that skills. Now, I will say all of these skills. This next one I will tell you is the one I think is the most critical. You got to have a sense of humor, because you ain't gonna make it in HR if you can't laugh. Because we could write a book about stories that come our way, right? But you have to be able to have a sense of humor and have fun at work, and have some of the stuff that comes across our desk. You go, what? What am I reading? What is this? And you gotta laugh about it. You gotta laugh about it. Otherwise, you just take that stress home, right? So you gotta have a sense of humor.
Geeta, are you still on? Geeta is she's an expert in HR and humor, so that's what her business is built on.
Cool.
So yeah, she helps teams take on HR and humor at the same time. So
Yeah.
She helps HR teams bring humor to the organization. So I think that she's definitely onto something there. So quickly going through, I think you talked about 7 of the most important skills, but that's great because, overachiever there. So we've got number 1, coaching. Number 2, we talked about business acumen. Number 3, we talked about the ability. I don't remember number 3.
To be an enterprise change leader, to be able to do that, navigate through the changes of all the disruptions we're going to have and the organizational transformations.
Yep. And then build your real teams, build a good HR team, and then build relationships.
Build relationships,
so
and sense of humor.
Sense of humor. So 7. Yeah, we had the 7 there. Yeah. So I'm gonna add that an idea around, and everybody knows that this is like my big focus, is this idea around understanding HR technology and work technology. And I really want to say to everybody that I know that there's so many vendors out there, and I know that there's so many people wanting to have your attention to cut through the noise. But here's where I think is like the huge benefit in that is that if you accept a demo, every demo that you accept, you learn more and more about what's out there. So I wouldn't say it's like not of a waste of time, but I do think that one of my biggest advice is to, if a vendor wants to give you a demo on like a new platform, a new technology, or a feature, I think you should accept it, simply for the fact of like, every time you do a demo, you learn more about the technology is out there. And so you do become a better HR leader because you are positioning yourself with the change and with the technology and the digitization. Excuse me, I didn't say that right. Digitization that Sudha was talking about. So that's my 2 cents.
Because be a learner, right?
Yeah.
Never stop learning in your organization or in your industry. So be that constant learner. I think that's a great point.
Quick back to the audience. Shruti said, "Love that." I'm not sure what she said, "Love that" to, but Shruti, what was it? What we were talking about that you said, "Love that" to? And so we're going to come up on we've got about 7 minutes left. Did you say something, Sudha? Did I interrupt you?
Okay.
So we've got 7 minutes left, and I wanted to know, Sudha, before we go into summarization, and maybe ask you one more question, what is the best way for people to connect with you and learn more about your work?
The best way to connect with me is through LinkedIn. It's a great networking opportunity. If anyone wants to connect because they want me to connect them with someone within my network, I'm happy to do that. I am a huge proponent of throwing the ladder down or across. If someone's trying to build their HR career, or even if it's not in HR, but you see within my network that I've got folks that you'd like to connect with in other organizations, we're only going to get through this world and this life, folks, by helping each other. Okay, there's no point in having experience if you're not going to share it. So I'm a true promoter of that. So I'm happy to connect with you and share any experience that I have, or share anybody in my network. What I will say, although I just said be a learner, I really don't want a lot of vendors A lot of vendors messaging me for demos. But I might eat crow saying that, but it's just a time factor, that's all. But I'm happy to connect and share any experience that I have. I really am.
Well, no, I think, okay, so going back to what I said is I think you have to vendors have to message people with intent.
Yeah.
Like there's an intent for something, not just like this mass automation of messages. Like don't accept those. Don't accept demos from those.
It's interesting. I mean, again, I'm dating myself now, but we didn't have LinkedIn when I was in the career search time. I bought that book, 100 Best Companies in Canada to Work For. And I did that "What color is your parachute" thing. Do you remember that book and all those skills? And we have the ability now through technology to network and to share our experiences and to help others in their careers. So, like I said, I'm so open to doing that. I wish I had LinkedIn when I was coming up through the ranks. So, or even if it's just to collaborate, if you want to talk about things that you're doing within your organization to see, if I've experienced that, or I might want to collaborate with you. I think it's really important for HR folks to stay connected. I was recently at a conference about a month ago, and the audience was 99.9% HR people, and it was such a cathartic experience to be around like-minded people, talk about strategies that they're working on, everything that we've talked about here today, future of work, disrupting what's important, leading HR teams through the pandemic, and how difficult that's been to do and to navigate. There is something about sharing information that I think is helpful, not just professionally, but for the mind and the soul too.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. I think that you might be my reciprocity collaboration soulmate in that is that
Anytime.
I 100 absolutely believe in that. And that's how we met too.
Yeah.
I said, "Hey, let's collaborate on something." And you said, "Hey, I'm in."
Yeah. Again, there's no point in having experience if you're not sharing it. What's it for then?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. But developing that network, whether you're an HR professional or whatever industry you're in, I think it's so important to your own success, because you can say, "Hey, did you guys try this? Did it work?" And I think it's great to share successes, but it's also really important to share failures. What didn't work, right? And why? And whether that's your own personal failure in your career or your organization's failure, like share those so we can help each other through this difficult world that we're working in today.
Yeah. And thank you for helping me just there, because I realized that I had forgotten that one last question about the depth of the HR network, but you answered it for me, so I appreciate that. All right, everybody. So a quick few bits about Progressive HR before we end the live. Episode 5 of Progressive HR Live is in season 3 is coming in June with Debbie Plager of the Plager Group, and we're going to be discussing the move from HR executive to consultant, or basically HR exec to solopreneur. And if you would like to learn more about Progressive HR bespoke HR executive thought leadership services and our HR technology events with companies like Proven Base, Club Health, and GoCo, you can visit the Progressive HR LinkedIn page, or you can just DM me directly. Sarah Marie is going to be adding some information into the comments now and some links. So you can also stay up to date with Progressive HR news and all of our Progressive HR lives by subscribing to our newsletter, which of course is called Progressive HR Newsletter. There's a theme here. And it's Progressive HR. So before we end, I wanted to ask you really quick, Sudha, going back to the conversation we were having before about the C-suite and the relationships that you build within the C-suite. So we've heard a lot about this move from there's more and more CHROs becoming CEOs. And can you tell me why you think that's important?
So I think that's a great shift. I really do. Traditionally, CEOs of organizations have come from the financial pillar or the commercial pillar. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, Corinne, about recognizing that EQ, EI, whatever was called soft skills before, are actually really hard skills. And those are really critical to leading an organization, especially through the times that we're in now and the future of where we're headed. I'm really welcoming that. I think we've seen some examples. I think we need more. So we have more CHROs becoming CEOs, more women becoming leaders of businesses. I think all of that is really critical to how we're going to change the way organizations are led. It really should be a focus of any leader to have strong EQ, strong influencing, strong coaching, ability to inspire. People want to come to work every day for great work and to work for great leaders. And I think that CHROs have a lot of those skill sets already. So if you're a CEO and you're looking at your succession plan, look at your HR leader too and see what he or she can bring to the table, because I think that's really critical.
And with that, another mic drop from Sudha. We're going to go ahead and end our show now. And so I wanted to say, Sudha, thank you very much for joining me today. I greatly appreciate you sharing your time and your insights with the progressive HR community.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Of course. And thank you, audience, for joining us today. If you feel that this conversation would be helpful to someone in your network, please go ahead and share the link to this conversation, to this video with them. This video will be playing on replay for the next week on my page. So please go ahead and like and share and give us some rave reviews. And we'll see you next month for Progressive HR Live. Episode 5. Thanks, everyone.
Bye for now. Thank you.